The Arizona sun burned over Mesa Verde as Sheriff Nathan Cross stood on the courthouse steps, scanning the horizon for the approaching Apache delegation. Tension hung heavy. 3 days earlier, drunken miners had killed 2 young Apache braves, shattering months of fragile peace. At 32, Nathan had spent 4 difficult years trying to keep the town from imploding. A former cavalryman, he'd come seeking peace, only to find himself between 2 worlds on the edge of war. "They're coming," Deputy Tommy Wilson called from the bell tower. 20 Apache riders approached, flying a white flag. Chief Standing Wolf led them, stoic and grim, alongside his war chief Running Bear, and a young woman riding between them caught Nathan's eye. She looked barely 19, with long black hair braided with silver beads, her dark eyes sharp yet somber. The Apache delegation halted in the square. "Sheriff Cross," Standing Wolf said in steady English, "we must talk." Nathan stepped forward. "I'm ready to listen. Your people broke the peace. My nephew is dead. My warriors want blood. I can't hold them back much longer. I'll punish the men responsible," Nathan promised. "Words blow like the wind," the chief said. "We need more than words." Nathan braced himself. "What do you want?" Standing Wolf gestured to the girl on horseback. "This is my daughter, Ayanna. You will take her as your wife." The crowd erupted in gasps and angry shouts. Nathan's heart sank. Marriage to an Apache woman would turn him into a pariah in Mesa Verde, but refusal meant war. "And if I refuse?" Nathan asked. "By dawn, this town will burn." Nathan asked if Ayanna agreed. The chief spoke to her in Apache. Her response was quiet but firm. "She understands her duty," Standing Wolf said. The town leaders whispered frantically behind Nathan. The Apache warriors watched in cold silence. "I need time," Nathan tried. "There is no time," the chief said flatly. "Marriage or war." Nathan met Ayanna's eyes. She sat proud but scared, a pawn like him in this deadly game. "All right," Nathan said at last. "I accept." The square exploded with arguments and disbelief. But Standing Wolf nodded, almost as if he'd expected this outcome. "The ceremony will be at sunset," the chief declared. "In our way, before both peoples." As the Apaches made camp outside town, Nathan retreated to his office, stunned. In 4 hours, he'd marry a woman he didn't know, whose language he couldn't speak, for a peace that might not even hold. Tommy Wilson approached hesitantly. "Sheriff, are you sure about this? Folks aren't going to take it well." "Better this than war," Nathan replied. "Tommy, if anything happens to me, you protect her. This isn't her choice either." Checking his revolver, Nathan whispered to himself, "At least we'll have tried everything." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, Nathan prepared for a wedding that felt like a death sentence, but one that would soon become the most important turning point of his life. The meadow outside Mesa Verde had become a tense meeting ground. Townspeople on one side, armed and suspicious, Apache warriors on the other, watchful and proud. Nathan stood in the center, wearing his best shirt, polished badge gleaming under the setting sun. Every eye was on him. Chief Standing Wolf approached with his daughter Ayanna and an elderly Apache woman introduced as Grandmother Moon, the tribe's spiritual leader. Ayanna wore a stunning white buckskin dress, decorated with turquoise beads and silver ornaments. Her hands trembled slightly, but her face remained composed. Nathan realized she was likely more frightened than he was. Grandmother Moon began speaking in Apache, her voice strong and ceremonial. Standing Wolf quietly translated, a blessing over the sacred bond, a call for protection and honor between husband and wife. Nathan listened, standing still as Grandmother Moon tied his and Ayanna's hands with a braided leather cord. The woman then presented a basket of sacred foods: corn, herbs, fruit. "You must share the sacred foods," Standing Wolf explained. Nathan took a piece of corn and ate it, then handed another to Ayanna. Their fingers brushed. She watched him carefully, measuring every gesture. The ceremony continued with chanting from the Apache warriors. The townspeople shifted uncomfortably, clearly uneasy with the foreign rituals. "Now your vows," Standing Wolf prompted. Nathan cleared his throat, feeling the weight of both communities watching him. Nathan Cross, take you, Ayanna, as my wife, he said first in English, then again in halting Apache with the chief's help. Ayanna responded with her own vow in Apache, loyalty, honor, and willingness to stand beside him in trials and joy. Her voice was soft but unwavering. Grandmother Moon wrapped their joined hands again with the cord and spoke a final blessing. "It is done," Standing Wolf announced. "By Apache law and before all witnesses, you are husband and wife. The peace is sealed." Some townsfolk clapped politely. Others muttered in disapproval. Nathan noticed certain men glaring, trouble that might come later. Before leaving, Standing Wolf pulled Nathan aside. "My daughter is precious. She deserves respect. Harm her, and there will be no peace." "I understand," Nathan said sincerely. As the Apache delegation rode away, Nathan and Ayanna stood alone in the emptying meadow. The air between them hung thick with awkward silence. "Well," Nathan said, gesturing toward town. "Home." Ayanna, still clutching a small bundle of belongings, nodded. Walking down Main Street, Nathan felt the stares from windows and doorways. Gossip had already spread like wildfire. Reaching his modest two-story house at the end of the street, Nathan opened the door. "This is home," he said, pointing to both of them. "Our home now." Ayanna entered cautiously, examining the sparse rooms. Nathan mimed eating, but she shook her head, pointing upstairs and signaling that she was tired. He showed her to the spare bedroom, hastily cleaned earlier. It was small but private. "This is yours," he said. "If you need anything, I'll be down the hall." Ayanna stood at the doorway and in careful English whispered, "Thank you." "Is kind." Her voice was soft, unfamiliar but beautiful. Nathan smiled faintly. "You're welcome. Good night, Ayanna." "Good night, Nathan," she repeated, testing the word. Lying in his room, Nathan stared at the ceiling, overwhelmed. Married to a woman he didn't know, from a culture he barely understood. In the quiet of the house, knowing she was just across the hall, he didn't feel quite as alone. In her room, still in her wedding dress, Ayanna sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the foreign town outside her window. She was far from everything familiar, now wife to a stranger. But Nathan had been kind, had shown restraint and respect. Maybe, she thought, with time, they could find a way to build something worth holding on to. 3 weeks after the wedding, Nathan realized marriage, political or not, was more complicated than keeping peace in Mesa Verde. He and Ayanna settled into a cautious routine, polite but distant, communicating through gestures, broken English, and the few Apache words Nathan had learned. Town opinion was divided. Some respected Ayanna, especially after she helped deliver Mrs. Peterson's baby when the doctor was away. Others remained hostile, calling her a savage and questioning Nathan's judgment. At the sheriff's office, Deputy Tommy Wilson interrupted Nathan's paperwork. "Sheriff, been hearing talk. Garrett's miners have been drinking, saying an Apache in town brings bad luck. Asking about your patrol schedule when she's alone." Nathan's stomach twisted. "Thanks, Tommy. Keep listening." Walking home for lunch, Nathan's eyes scanned the street, more alert to every stare and whisper. At home, Ayanna prepared lunch, a blend of her cooking traditions with whatever supplies the pantry allowed. Her English was improving fast, though Nathan still struggled with Apache. "Smells good," he said, hanging his hat. "It's good. You will like," she replied with a small smile. Over their meal, she grew serious. "Yesterday, 3 men came. Angry words. Bad faces." Nathan's blood boiled. "What did they say?" "They said, Apache brings bad luck. Said I should go back to dessert." She hesitated, then drew her finger across her throat, the universal sign for death. Nathan stood abruptly. "Who were they?" Ayanna described them. 3 miners from Garrett's crew. "Ayanna, promise me, don't open the door to strangers. If anyone threatens you again, come find me." She nodded, but added quietly, "In my people's way, a husband protects wife. But this, not real marriage. I did not expect you to fight for me." Her words hit hard. Somewhere in the past weeks, Nathan's feelings had shifted. "Ayanna, this started as politics, but you're my wife. That matters to me." Her eyes widened. "I did not know it meant something to you." It does, Nathan said simply. You're my wife. That means something. That afternoon, Nathan walked into Murphy's saloon and found the three miners, Crawford, Hawkins, and Bradley, drinking. Gentlemen, Nathan's voice rang out, making the room fall silent. I hear you pay my wife a visit. Crawford sneered. It's a free country. Free enough for friendly visits, Nathan said, resting a hand on his revolver, but not free enough for threatening women. Hawkins stammered denials, but Nathan pressed on. If I hear another word, I'll arrest all three of you for threatening a peace officer's family. Bradley muttered, You can't arrest us for talking. Try me, Nathan said coldly. And next time, talk to me. Not her. The miners mumbled grudging agreement. Nathan left, knowing trouble would eventually return. That evening, he found Ayanna on the porch, sewing beadwork in the fading light. The scene warmed him in ways he hadn't expected. How was your day? He asked. Better now, she smiled faintly. You spoke to them? I did. They won't bother you again. You didn't have to, she said. This marriage, it is duty. Nathan sat beside her. It started as duty, but it's become more. More than duty, she repeated softly. I care about you, Ayanna. Not as a symbol, as my wife. The woman who's made this house feel like home. Ayanna stared at him, her eyes shining. In my people's way, marriage is joining of hearts. I did not think white man's marriage could be like that. This one can if you wanted to be. Slowly, she placed her hand on his. I wanted to be. Nathan turned his hand to hold hers gently. You're not alone, Ayanna. Not anymore. As twilight deepened, with hands linked and new emotions stirring, both realized that what had begun as a political arrangement was slowly, unmistakably becoming real. Spring had arrived in the Arizona territory with a profusion of wildflowers and the promise of new beginnings, but also brought troubling news that would test every bond Nathan and Ayanna had forged over the winter months. Their marriage had grown into something genuine and deep, no longer a political arrangement, but a true partnership built on respect, affection, and growing love. Nathan stood in his office, reading a telegram that had arrived that morning from the territorial government. The words on the page made his blood run cold. Apache uprising reported near Tucson. All settlements advised to prepare defenses. Additional cavalry units being deployed. Deputy Wilson looked up from his desk, noting Nathan's grim expression. Bad news, Sheriff? Could be. Nathan folded the telegram and tucked it into his pocket. Tommy, I want you to double patrols around town today and send word to Mayor Hutchins. We need to meet with the town council tonight. Yes, sir. Should I tell them what this is about? Tell them we need to discuss security measures. Nothing more right now. Nathan's real concern wasn't just the reported Apache uprising. It was how the news would affect the fragile peace they had maintained in Mesa Verde. Fear had a way of making people forget reason and turn on the nearest target. And the nearest target was currently at home. Tending to the garden, she had transformed into a thing of beauty. He found Ayanna behind their house, kneeling among the rows of vegetables and herbs she had coaxed from the desert soil. She looked up as he approached, her face brightening with the smile that never failed to warm his heart. Nathan, she said, rising gracefully and brushing dirt from her hands, you are home early. Is something wrong? Over the months, Ayanna's English had improved dramatically, though she still spoke with the careful precision of someone thinking in one language while speaking in another. Nathan had learned enough Apache to carry on basic conversations, creating a unique blend of languages in their household. We need to talk, Nathan said gently, taking her hands in his. There's been trouble south of here. Other Apache bands. Not your father's people, but trouble just the same. Ayanna's face grew serious. What kind of trouble? Nathan explained about the telegram, watching as understanding and fear flickered across her features. She had lived in Mesa Verde long enough to know how quickly suspicion and hostility could arise when people were frightened. They will blame all Apache, she said quietly. They will blame me. Not if I have anything to say about it, Nathan replied firmly. But Ayanna, we need to be careful. Some people in town have been looking for an excuse to cause trouble, and this gives them one. That evening's town council meeting confirmed Nathan's worst fears. The mood in the room was tense and hostile, with several council members demanding immediate action against the Apache threat in their midst. Sheriff Cross, Mayor Hutchins began, his voice strained with barely controlled anxiety. We've all heard about the uprising near Tucson. The council feels we need to take precautionary measures to protect our citizens. What kind of measures? Nathan asked, though he suspected he already knew. Councilman Weber, who owned the town's largest general store, spoke up immediately. We think it would be best if your wife were to be temporarily relocated somewhere safe. For her own protection, of course. Of course, Nathan replied dryly. And where exactly did you have in mind? The territorial authorities have established secure facilities for situations like this, Weber continued. Places where Indians can be kept safe and monitored until the current troubles are resolved. Nathan felt his temper rising. You're talking about a prison camp. For my wife, who has committed no crime and poses no threat to anyone. Now, Sheriff, Mayor Hutchins said placatingly, no one's talking about prison. But surely you can understand the town's concerns. With Apache warriors attacking settlements, people are nervous about having an Apache woman living right here among us. The Apache woman you're talking about is married to your sheriff, Nathan said, his voice dangerously quiet. She's a citizen of this territory by marriage, and she's under my protection. Anyone who wants to relocate her will have to go through me first. Sheriff Cross, Councilman Bradley interjected. We're not questioning your authority, but we have to think about the safety of the entire community. What if she's in contact with the hostile bands? What if she's passing information? Nathan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the wooden floor. Gentlemen, my wife spends her days tending our garden, helping sick neighbors, and learning to read English from the Bible Mrs. Patterson lent her. If you think she's a spy, you're not just wrong, you're fools. The room erupted in angry voices, but Nathan cut through them with the authority of a man accustomed to controlling dangerous situations. Here's what's going to happen, he said firmly. Ayanna stays in our home, where she belongs. I'll increase patrols and security measures as needed, but I will not allow fear and prejudice to destroy the peace we've worked so hard to maintain. And if the town council overrules you, Weber challenged. Nathan's hand moved to rest on his gun, but not a threat exactly, but a reminder of where ultimate authority lay in situations like this. The town council doesn't have the authority to imprison innocent citizens, Nathan replied. And any man who tries to harm my wife will answer to me personally. As Nathan left the meeting, he could feel the hostility following him like heat from a forge. He had probably just made enemies of half the town council, but he couldn't bring himself to care. Ayanna was his wife, his responsibility, and his heart. No political consideration was worth betraying that trust. He found Ayanna waiting up for him, sitting by the fireplace with her sewing in her lap, but clearly too anxious to focus on the work. She looked up as he entered, reading the tension in his face immediately. The meeting did not go well, she said. It wasn't a question. Nathan sat beside her on their small sofa, suddenly feeling exhausted. Some people want you moved to what they call a secure facility until the trouble down south is resolved. Ayanna was quiet for a moment, her hands still on her needlework. A prison, she said finally. I won't let that happen. Nathan, Ayanna said softly, turning to face him, maybe it would be better if I went back to my father's people for a while, until the fear passes. No. Nathan's response was immediate and fierce. This is your home now. You're my wife, not a political prisoner to be moved around when things get difficult. But if my presence here causes trouble for you, you're not causing trouble. Fear and ignorance are causing trouble. Nathan took her hands in his, feeling how small they were, how strong despite their delicate appearance. Ayanna, when we got married, I promised to protect you. That didn't just mean from physical harm. It meant from this kind of injustice, too. Ayanna's eyes filled with tears, though she blinked them back with characteristic strength. I love you, she said quietly. I did not expect to love you when we married, but I do. And because I love you, I do not want to be the reason you lose everything you have worked for. Reason you lose everything you have worked for. Nathan felt his heart clench at her words. You're not going to cost me anything worth keeping. And Ayanna, I love you too, more than I ever thought possible. They had said the words before, in quiet moments and intimate conversations, but tonight they carried extra weight. Tonight, they were a declaration of war against those who would tear them apart. The next morning brought the crisis Nathan had been dreading. He arrived at his office to find Deputy Wilson waiting with a worried expression and 3 strangers, 2 men in cavalry uniforms and 1 in a civilian suit who had the bearing of a federal official. Sheriff Cross, the civilian said, extending his hand, I'm Agent Harrison from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. These are Captain Williams and Lieutenant Morrison from Fort Apache. We need to discuss your wife. Nathan shook hands warily, noting the grim expressions on all 3 faces. What about my wife? There have been concerns raised about her continued presence in Mesa Verde, Agent Harrison said carefully. Given the current unrest among the Apache bands, the territorial government feels it would be prudent to relocate all Apache individuals to secure locations until the situation stabilizes. My wife is an American citizen by marriage, Nathan replied firmly. She's not subject to relocation orders. Captain Williams, a weathered man with gray at his temples, spoke up. Sheriff, we understand your position, but we have reports that she may be in communication with hostile Apache forces. For the safety of the community. What reports? Nathan interrupted. Who made these accusations? The 3 men exchanged glances. That's not something we can discuss, Agent Harrison said. But the orders come from the territorial governor himself. Mrs. Cross is to be relocated to the facility at Camp Grant for her own protection and the security of the community. Nathan felt rage building in his chest, but he kept his voice level. And if I refuse to cooperate, then we'll be forced to take her into custody by other means, Captain Williams said regretfully. Sheriff, we don't want this to become unpleasant, but our orders are clear. I want to see those orders, Nathan demanded. Agent Harrison produced a folded document bearing official seals. Nathan read it carefully, his heart sinking. The order was legitimate, signed by the territorial governor and endorsed by the military command. On paper, it gave them the authority to relocate any Apache individual deemed a security risk. This is based on lies and fear, Nathan said, handing back the document. My wife is no more a security risk than Mrs. Peterson or any other woman in this town. That may be, Agent Harrison replied, but the order stands. We can give you 1 hour to prepare her for departure. Nathan's mind raced, searching for alternatives. He could resist, but that would mean a gun battle with federal troops. A battle he couldn't win, and that would only result in Ayanna being taken anyway, possibly amid violence that could hurt innocent people. I need to speak with my wife, he said finally. Of course. We'll wait here. Nathan walked home with leaden steps, dreading the conversation ahead. He found Ayanna in the kitchen, preparing their morning meal with the quiet efficiency that had become one of the constants of their shared life. She looked up as he entered, and immediately knew from his expression that their worst fears had come to pass. They have come for me, she said calmly. Federal agents and cavalry officers. They have orders from the territorial governor. Nathan's voice was rough with suppressed emotion. Ayanna, I'm so sorry. I tried to prevent this, but I know you did, she said, moving to him and placing her hands on his chest. This is not your fault. I could fight them. We could run. No. Ayanna's voice was firm. You are a lawman, Nathan. You cannot break the law, even for me. And if we run, you would become an outlaw. I will not let you destroy your life for mine. Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if he could somehow protect her from what was coming. This isn't over, he whispered fiercely. I'll find a way to get you out of there. I'll appeal to the governor, to Washington if necessary. This is temporary, Ayanna. I promise you that. I know, she replied, though her voice trembled slightly. But Nathan, if something happens to me if I do not come back. Don't talk like that. Listen to me, she insisted, pulling back to look into his eyes. If I do not come back, you must not let anger consume you. You must not let this destroy the good man you are. Promise me. Nathan wanted to promise her many things, that he would bring her home safely, that their love would conquer all obstacles, that justice would prevail. But looking into her brave, frightened eyes, he could only promise the one thing she had asked for. "I promise," he said hoarsely. An hour later, Nathan stood in the street watching as the woman he loved was loaded into a military wagon bound for Camp Grant. Ayanna sat straight and dignified despite the circumstances, her eyes finding his across the distance and holding them until the wagon disappeared around the bend in the road. The crowd that had gathered to watch included many of the same people who had demanded her removal. Nathan looked at their faces. Some showed guilt and uncertainty now that the deed was done, but others displayed satisfaction that the Apache threat had been eliminated. "You've all gotten what you wanted," Nathan said, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "I hope you can live with it." As he walked back to his empty house, Nathan made a silent vow. He would bring Ayanna home, no matter what it took. The woman who had started as a political necessity had become the center of his world, and he would move heaven and earth to protect her. But first, he had to find out who had made the accusations that led to her arrest. And when he did, there would be a reckoning that would echo through the Arizona territory for years to come. The war for his wife's freedom was just beginning. 3 days after Ayanna's departure, Nathan received an unexpected visitor. Chief Standing Wolf rode into Mesa Verde alone, his face grim with barely controlled fury. Nathan met him in the street, knowing that this conversation could determine whether their fragile peace survived. "Sheriff Cross," the chief said in English, his voice heavy with disappointment and anger. "They have taken my daughter." "I try to stop them," Nathan replied. "I would have fought them if Ayanna hadn't insisted I follow the law." Standing Wolf studied Nathan's face for a long moment, apparently seeing the genuine anguish there. "You love her," he said finally. "This I can see. But love is not enough to protect those we care about from the hatred of others." "I'm going to get her back," Nathan said firmly. "Whatever it takes. And if you cannot, if they decide she is too dangerous to release." Nathan met the chief's eyes steadily. "Then I'll have failed the most important duty of my life." Standing Wolf nodded slowly. "You speak truth, Sheriff. But know this, if my daughter dies in their prison camp, the peace between our peoples dies with her. I cannot hold back my warriors if they believe the white man's promises mean nothing." As the chief rode away, Nathan realized that more than his personal happiness hung in the balance. The fate of 2 peoples, the peace that had cost so much to achieve, and the future of the entire territory now depended on bringing Ayanna home safely. Nathan returned to his office and began writing letters to the territorial governor, to military commanders, to anyone with influence who might help secure Ayanna's release. But even as he wrote, he knew that official channels would likely prove too slow. If Ayanna was to be saved, it would require more direct action. And Nathan Cross, sheriff and husband, was prepared to take whatever action necessary to bring his wife home where she belonged. The love that had begun as political necessity had become the most powerful force in both their lives. Now it would be tested by the greatest challenge they had ever faced, the hatred and fear that seemed determined to tear them apart. But Nathan had learned something important during his months with Ayanna. Some things were worth fighting for, no matter the cost. And the woman who had taught him to love again was definitely worth everything he had to give. The final battle for their love and their life together was about to begin.